Very nice.
I'm kind of looking forward to the view down as we take off, though. See, we can see a bunch of the octopus in the distance that we haven't had a chance to see yet. A little teaser for the next time we can come back here. This was called Speed Science.
New land speed record.
How many octopus can you see in an hour?
To do it?
Yeah.
Greg finished with about 10 seconds,
10 seconds
to
to
spare.
spare.
Yeah.
It's just minor challenges we give each other.
Wow.
We're not competitive. It's
That's
cool.
why he pulled
That's
two Niskins at once.
Yeah, I had to go for the
He
two
was
Niskins.
like,
Right,
let me
it's
just
done.
show
Yeah.
off this last
Also do 2 Niskins. What?
Yeah.
Pick up the rock.
All right, so
I don't even need that 10 seconds. These 10 seconds are just to tell you how good I did.
Are we ready to set up? Chad, I marked where those plates are just in case
Oh,
you want to
fantastic.
use them navigationally later, but I think that you'll find all the octopus you need strewn around the top of this.
Look at that beautiful sponge that is definitely not a trash can. Okay, goodbye.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Yeah, crazy.
Look
Go down
at
the hill
him.
there.
all right, so you need to spin around so we can go tail to tail.
Got
So,
it. And
I think this feature needs a
which
name.
way?
Yeah.
Nautilus Knoll.
Wow.
Oh, so I'm increasing my
Probably
6/8
wrong
to
way.
the other way.
Yeah, wrong way. Because you're increasing both, actually.
Yeah, this is an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, we've had a great 2 dives out here
Yep. Yep.
Such a good
Aaron,
expedition.
coral.
on the southeast
The last thing we're going to get
apron.
is
Look at that
Davidson
coral
Seamount.
and that sponge.
And more shimmer, why not?
I know. How about we throw in a little venting? Were we looking for that?
Shimmer
Here it is.
into a lepidosis.
I know, now we're not
Here
even
we
like,
go.
oh, look, it's a shimmer. We're like, yeah, shimmer. An
A
hour ago.
beautiful,
A little over an
super tall
hour ago.
lepidosis coral.
All it is the deep sea waving by.
Yeah. An hour ago, we were
Oh.
like, shimmer.
Do I want to hang out at 0? Because that's the...
No, we'll work our way to 0.
It's down
Okay.
You
that
can
way.
actually come
It's down that
out of auto heading and let's call off bottom.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, little octos. Till we meet again.
Sorry,
Au
what was the end of that
revoir.
sentence?
I'm gonna log off
You
bottom
can
there.
come, yeah.
Wow.
So how many hours to the surface?
3.
3.
Hopefully
Alright.
under 3.
We're going to answer every
About
question on the
2:43.
Yeah, is there a
And make
backlog
Greg
of questions
introduce
now,
himself.
Megan?
There are so many. There are
Yeah,
so many that we haven't been able to get to, and just it's been awesome. There's a ton of new people who are tuning into Nautilus for the first time. If you've just
Ready?
found us and you're
Yep.
watching on YouTube, do know that you can come on over to nautiluslive.org, and there's a lot of content to support the live stream.
Looks like you're at 15 or so.
And if you're watching on
Yeah, I'm
YouTube,
probably
thanks
going
for
to get
watching there.
16 this way.
It's one of our
um,
biggest
And
platforms.
then I'll do the zigzag, and that should give us up to 22.
So cool to see so many
to
people
20?
excited about.
Yeah, go ahead and
I
do
know.
20, and I will see what magic I can work over here.
Yeah, I just
I'm gonna
love
switch
it.
you over to USPL.
That would be wonderful.
This is the time we get like all of the warm fuzzies. I mean, our job always has all the warm fuzzies, but we really do appreciate all the really kind things that people are writing in and saying, and we're just thrilled to be able to share this experience with you and to
Surprised
have
at how
brought
good
you to
that
a new
is.
part of the
Yeah, I know,
seafloor,
all of a sudden.
a new
Yeah.
part of the earth
Great.
that no one had ever been before. So, you know, we really value and believe that you're a part of our team while you're there
It's a
with
useful
us.
extra
And so
15 minutes.
this exploration
Did a lot.
is yours as much as it is ours. So pretty cool. We introduced thousands and thousands of new people to the seafloor today, whether that was like through Twitter or
Well, and the cool thing, like
Reddit
we're talking
or
about,
where-
is that the people who are watching live are discovering it with us in real time. Like they saw the whale
oh yeah,
fall when we saw the whale fall.
yeah. We don't mean it in like that we've canned it and delivered it to somebody. You know, like this is live, really live.
Sometimes when
Let's
I've shown it
see,
to
right on
classrooms,
the
they're like,
to-do
really?
list.
I mean, like right now? I'm like right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
This is what
You can
they're
write on the
seeing, and you're
spreadsheet, we
seeing
just
it
have to make
too.
sure we bring it
They
down.
can't believe it for a little bit.
They're like
Um,
right now. Yes.
Yes, right now.
We have
Yeah, they're
primary
like,
comp
say my
week.
name, and you're like, Shout out to Seminole, Florida. Shout out to Oregon. The folks are writing in right now. We've
Crossbow
heard a
groundfall.
lot about people wanting to use whale fall as a Halloween costume. You know?
Really?
So just like
I am thinking
Oh, yeah.
that's my
How do you
go-to
do that?
costume.
I don't know. We'll have to
Well, you
figure it
could-
out.
High
Could you
voltage
dress
J-Box
in like
leak.
a sheet with things hanging off and then
Oh,
little
sure.
octopuses all over you?
But then do you have to like lay down?
Well, I mean,
Are you like?
it's not going to be a very fun Halloween if you're just
You could just build some
laying
cardboard
down.
ribs off.
Still the royal purple coming out of one of the
It's a
thrusters.
new Nautilus
Yeah.
Oh,
contest.
and you could definitely
Well, we'll
hang
check
some
that.
like eel
So
pouts
check
off of
starboard
you.
vert
Get like a baleen hat.
for red
Make it out of
oil.
cardboard. Yeah, this is
My
so
pen's over there.
fantastic. So thanks all for being with us. Lots of love for the Great to 12 watch. Hang out with us though. Don't disappear yet. We will be here answering your questions all the way back to the surface.
We will be here.
We will be here.
Anything else?
That's all I've got right now.
Okay, I'm gonna run through numbers now. At
The rock.
Yep.
From the top. Whoops.
All right, team. Let's get to some questions. So Chad, where are we right now? Oh, my science team is off comms, aren't they? I can't
Sorry.
see them.
Yeah, they're busy.
I'm here. What?
Oh, perfect. Do you want to describe where we are, where we've been?
Where we've been?
Mm-hmm.
So we have been exploring in a portion of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary called the Davidson Seamount Management Zone.
It's time to call the
And it was
dive
designated because of this very large submerged extinct volcano called the Davidson Seamount. As we were talking about earlier, portions of the area around the base of that seamount were only mapped 2 years ago. And when we got that mapping, and Nautilus mapped it, when we got those maps, there were some interesting, much smaller features than the seamount. But we wanted to know what was living down
we
and
have to call Mark.
around the seamount. So last year we went
Yeah.
to 2 of
No,
those
he wants to rinse.
features, and on the second one is where we
but he
found the
knew it was
octopus
supposed to be 9,
garden.
and I don't see him.
Coming back, we wanted to
Can I go get 'em?
re-explore the octopus garden and then start looking for similar type features along the seafloor. And the most promising one was at the end of this long dive where we were checking out other areas of kind of high relief and of interest to us, and then we ended up here at this cone that turned out to be more of this old lava flow, and at the top lots of cracks and crevices where we saw this water seeping out again, and found more octopus associated with them, lots of octopus associated with them. So, and brooding again, so very exciting. And we've been saying leading up to this, this is, if it's happening in one place where this water is traveling and seeping out of cracked rocks, it's likely it could be happening somewhere else. But can we find one of those other places? And we're pretty excited that we did.
At some point it gets abandoned up here because
All right, team. I have a question for the whole van. We have an explorer interested to know if we have Halloween costume ideas based off of our mission here.
Ooh.
Anybody thinking about being an ostax or a sponge?
I'm going to be a dead whale.
Are you?
Yes.
Tell me about your plans.
That's pretty good.
I'm going to ask my very creative sister if she'll make me a dead whale costume.
Someone could be a bone-eating worm.
That was cool. I did not know that there were bone-eating worms.
So I think you could probably wear like a body sheet or something
Yeah,
to
you're the
represent the
bone.
tube. Well, that's true,
And then
huh?
I think you should have.
I was just thinking of the worm, like the white tube, and then, yeah, you have red
Plumes.
coming out of the top, like on your head, like a big hat with red plumes or something.
I was thinking it could be the bone and the worm by building a worm that you would attach. You could actually attach worms all over you as bone-eating worms.
That's a
Do
good
almost
idea. A whole
22 in one
community.
direction.
Yeah. Well, because we didn't
French
just see
costume,
one.
right?
We saw many.
That's right.
I'm about to slow down.
Oh,
so you're
and you
fine.
could have one female and then all those little males. All. 'Cause
Oh my
the-
gosh, you can have all the parasitic males.
Well, no, they wrote in to say they weren't parasitic. but-
No,
No, they're not.
Yeah.
you're right. They're often, you're right. It's written sometimes like that. They are more slaves than anything.
I'm going to be the octopus hugging the craft arm.
Okay.
Oh,
Snuggly octopus.
Ooh, you
Some-
could,
someone-
you
Or
and- you and a
strangling, you know, it's hard
friend-
to tell which
You and a
what
friend
was
could
happening.
be the starfish strangling the rockfish.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that one's a good one.
A great couple's costume
A
for
great
the day.
costume, couple's costume. It's not my Halloween costume, but I'm planning it for my Thanksgiving costume to be the fish that eats too much that it can't escape the whale fall. I'm looking forward to being that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but really, I think
Can you do
we
it?
will
No, you
have
can't do it.
inspired
We
a lot of
checked
like
that.
most octopus costumes. There's so much beautiful imagery from our octopus. You could,
Ooh.
And you, if
What
you're
about
gonna,
a
you have to
Dumbo
just
octopus?
Low, too.
be a male or a female.
yeah,
You
a
have
Dumbo octopus
that
would be
right.
really good.
That's 1.8.
I was an elephant like one year for Halloween. My mom made the costume out of like a hoodie and then sewed these big cardboard
It is
ears
a
on.
huge
So
mom.
I've
Part of it
basically
is
been
that
a
the
Dumbo
springs are
octopus
dying.
already.
Well, last year, while we were on the Nautilus, we were at sea during Halloween.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. So a lot of the crew brought their own costumes and dressed up. It was
Yeah.
it was a lot
no,
of fun.
everything is still good, and we'll increase in pressure
That's
as we
so
go.
fantastic.
Probably.
I know. I had to get off before that, and I was so
All
sad
right,
to
now you
miss
have to
it.
speed up
And I
because
loved
I
though.
didn't slow down all that much.
I got a lot of the pictures, and that was really fun to see.
Yeah, it's
I
odd
would
this year to
dial
not
in
be at sea
20,
during that time of year. We have the last
21
few
or
years.
22,
So.
and then at some point slide it down to 20.
Oh man.
This is Amanda
back up.
chiming in on that. I know this is going to be weird, but I think I might want to dress up as a vertebrate.
Oh,
no.
What,
Way to branch
Amanda?
out.
Stop the
But
presses.
wait, it's because Erica on our watches has taught me how to identify the difference between a giant cusk eel and a grenadier. And so I was thinking of being a ghostly grenadier by dressing up like a ghost and then carrying around little fake grenades.
Oh gosh!
Right? It's a pun.
I like that
All of your
play
friends
on
will
words.
get it.
Very
It'll be
good.
perfect. Love it.
There's
Are you gonna have
something
little
fishy about
little barbels from your chin?
That sounds like fun. Yes. Yes, I must.
You gotta have the chin barbels. Otherwise, how will people know?
Add it to the
I mean,
list.
you gotta have the identifying features. No, I love it.
I love she's gonna be a vertebrate. Erica, you've had such an influence on her.
Like,
It's really
heights.
cool. I mean, I love it. I get to learn something new every time we're out here. Team, there are such nice comments coming in. People are writing literally tearing up right now about the final minutes of your incredible journey. I've been following you the past few months, and you've given so much to the science community and to general fans alike. Best wishes now, and the next time we all get to experience Nautilus again. Thank you for those
that's
who's
great.
never used their degrees, but other than to love the ocean and dream about going on trips like this, I feel like my dreams are fulfilled, even though I'm not on the Nautilus in person.
We're not crying. You're crying.
No, yeah, I know. I am crying. It's really, really nice. We
That was
appreciate you.
nice.
Oh,
You know, you could dress up for Halloween as a rock.
Me?
We've seen a lot of rocks.
we'll be a pillow basalt.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's not
pillow
my
basalt.
water.
That would be a really easy way to go.
Just weird.
Ooh, you could be a rock covered in spirorbits. You
Pass.
could use what are those pipe cleaners?
Little pipe
Pipe
cleaners.
cleaners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw.
And often spirorbits have their little red
Yeah, I figured
at
you
the
would.
end, so you could just color the ends of them red.
And you could put shimmer out, emanating out from you as like little pieces of streamers.
And people would be so excited to see
Saran
you.
wrap.
Because they'd just be like, shimmer.
Shimmer!
Probably go as a
Okay, so
sedimentary cliff, but then I think people
The
would think
cruise
you're
is
cake.
over, and we're cleaning
The
up
cruise
all
is
the
not
chocolate
over. We
now.
have to map. But we can eat all the
Oh,
chocolate.
the diving is over,
Yes.
yeah. Guys. Sorry, I can only pass on what I don't eat, right?
Oh, somebody
Oh,
took
no,
a piece of
be
this when
careful
I was
here.
in the mess. It's just like it's unfolded and there's a piece missing.
There's probably
Yeah,
only
we-
one person on the ship bold enough to do that, right?
The dregs. Oh, thank you. I have pocket candy.
That's fantastic.
Yuri.
Hazelnut.
So
Ooh.
science team, viewers
my
want to know what all the white stuff
That's a
falling
mint
through
one.
the screen is. Tell us about that.
Marine snow. Do you want to take it, or you want me to?
Oh, no, we'll tag team. I'll start it.
Okay.
So marine snow, yeah. A lot of this stuff that you're seeing in the water column, some of it is alive. That's not considered part of the marine snow. But all the dead stuff is organic, mostly organic, but there's some inorganics like sediments and things of that nature. It's all falling down. And of course, the inorganics build up all of the mud that you see, which eventually turn into rock perhaps, which we saw features that were more than 50 meters tall earlier today that built up over eons and eons. But the organic stuff is falling from the surface, and it's been estimated it takes anywhere between a couple of weeks and 2 months, depending on the size
in
and
one direction and 22 in the other.
how deep it's going and kind of its drag coefficient. But it's bringing a lot of that organic material down to the seafloor, and that's a primary food source for the deep sea animals. It comes down in the form of anything that's sloughed off an animal, skin cells, scales. It can be poop. It can be dead animals or parts of dead animals. It can be things that have landed on the surface. But what we saw earlier today is really, really critical to deep sea survival, and that was a whale fall. It's estimated that at any time there's about 700,000 dead whales on the seafloor around the world, which is enough to place them about every 5 to 12 kilometers or so along their migration routes, which is probably close enough for those bone worms to kind of hop. But it's also
Aaron wants to hit
estimated.
the brakes. Did you say 700,000?
Correct.
Whoa, sorry.
You just blew her mind up here at the front row.
Good thing I don't have to focus
I know,
on
isn't that
anything
crazy?
right now for
Uh-huh.
a video.
But it's
'cause-
estimated that, oh no, it's other animals that fall, but that's just like the big ones. But it's estimated that a typical size whale fall brings the equivalent amount of food down to that local area of the deep sea of 200 years.
Right, which is
Worth of
longer than
food.
the whale was alive, right?
Now,
That's
it
what
won't
I
last
think
200
it
years. That's just the
Yeah.
amount of energy that's being brought down. But anyway, it's
Wild.
really, really critical for
But
the
it
deep
might
sea to
last
have all this
50
stuff.
years, right? We were talking about earlier.
Yeah, the
between
bones can last up to 50.
So in those bone-eating worms, the Osidax, when I was kind of reading up on them, there's different species and they occur on different types of falls, so they're whale falls. But you have to think there's a lot of other large animals that live in the ocean. There are dolphins, and there are porpoises, and there are seals and sea lions and sea turtles, and some of those other animals die at sea as well and will sink to the seafloor.
Oh, well.
And then other things that are adding carbon to the seafloor, all those kelp fronds that we've
Absolutely,
been
the
seeing,
drift algae.
that one that we just saw of all that feather boa kelp, that was quite a bit. We've seen seagrass, and all of that is also adding quite a bit of food across the seafloor. Each one of those usually had at least some sea pigs or some sea urchins or something associated with it.
We'll just have to frame everybody's face.
What's that?
Jan was great.
What percentage of marine snow do you think actually makes the full fall from the surface to the floor? Or a different framing of that question, how many times is a piece of marine snow digested before it makes it to the seafloor here?
That's a great question. I'm not qualified to answer that one. But I'm sure that question is very perceptive. I'm sure it happens. I just don't know to what extent.
I have it's not a question, but just an observation. All of the random chances that came into play to finding that whale fall today.
Oh my gosh, right?
Right? So
Yeah.
you made the call to end the line that we were on and stop following the curve. George and his driving went a little bit too far off the line, and so that brought us south a little bit more. And then we ended up driving straight at a whale fall.
And then I hear you saw it on the sonar. Is that right?
Yeah, Rennie thought it was a rock.
We
Oh,
said
okay.
there's something big in the sonar. However, it was dead ahead for where we were going anyway.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
did not divert to get to it, so I can't take credit.
Yeah, but it's a complete team
Just
effort.
like saw that it was there.
If you think George didn't sail to that on purpose, I don't know what you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George has been waiting to
He's
show us
kind
that
of a
all
magical
year.
It's a team effort, but
So
George
wait, I
says
don't
is
know
the
anything.
MVP.
In that he's
Yeah.
my imaginary friend.
George. Who's George?
Okay, it's a team effort,
George
but
is the mate on the bridge.
Yeah, he's the.
Got it.
He's the
Okay.
MVP of this.
really
this
the
watch.
MVP.
George is the computer program that that we call to control the ship.
I thought somebody who
George likes to make it really hard for Rennie to use the word mate.
We do not know yet what kind of whale the whale fall was. We know it was a baleen whale. You can see that from its keratin plates, its filter strainer plates in its mouth on the front. But we worked on, our network of doctors on call, our experts, sort of the tagging people in from the marine mammal stranding networks locally, and also just different researchers that have worked with the sanctuaries before. But I don't know, Chad, any insight on that as you started to talk with other people?
A couple people have, who are way more qualified than I, remotely were guessing gray whale. Now, if it was a gray whale, it would be a juvenile.
Yeah.
Full adults get up to 35, 40 feet, and this one was probably around 4 or 5 meters, so we're talking about, 13, 15, 18 feet max. So, but yeah, I certainly, we do know it was a baleen whale, so it wasn't a toothed whale.
Definitely, we saw the baleen.
So, gray whales migrate along the west coast of North America, and they breed in Baja California, and they go back to Alaska to feed in the summertime, and they've been showing up not very well fed. So this guy was probably coming back to Baja California after summering in the north and probably just didn't make it.
Yeah, that's definitely one possibility. This year was an unusual mortality event for gray whales. It was declared that by NOAA and by NOAA Fisheries, and so they're still figuring out all the causes as to why so many gray whales were dying and washing ashore. Some of them that were necropsied, which is like an animal autopsy, were malnourished. So that's definitely one possibility. And I'll be interested to know more after we hear from experts if that is the assessment. We did take a lot of video of the whale, so if there was sign of any sort of blunt force trauma from a ship strike instead, we might be able to determine that from the video that we took.
Yeah, we were able to take very methodical measurements with the laser, so someone can go over that and get an accurate estimate. But we also got a lot of passes around it, so we should be able to reconstruct it to make a 3D model with photogrammetry. So we'll see.
Really neat.
Yeah, we'll see if that can happen. I'm sure it will, and that'll be a fun product to release.
I'm curious how they handle the fact that we did have these other animals associated with it that were moving, and how they handle that when they put it together in 3 dimensions.
Yeah, I know some of the software will look for the same surface over and over again and reject outliers. But other than that, yeah, there's going to be some that are still resting around the same spot, and so those will probably be there in the final product, but that's okay.
Oh, no, seriously. Well, I think it'd be cool for them
Yeah.
to be there, but some of the fish were moving a lot. We do have the others that were lounging on the whale sofa after having their full meal.
The fat eel pouts.
And some of the octopus were kind of hanging out too.
Even as I was sorting the captures, which are the still pictures we take from the video feed earlier today, sort of part of our triage of getting the media plan out and out to everyone. I was sorting through the captures, and there were a few times when the ROV was just perfectly still, and we got 4 or 5 or 6 captures right in the same spot, and all of a sudden you would just it was really cool to flip through them. It looked like one of those old-timey flip books where you just all the background was the same, and then one octopus would like get up and hop off, or one eel would come around through.
So if this was a
Where were you
juvenile
saying about
gray,
the octopus?
it floated a long ways from its
Right, because they're
migration
coastal.
path. Yep.
They feed in the shallow mud and things of that nature. So, but if it was close to the coast and died, it could have
Megan, what
floated
was it
off.
you were
Or if
saying
it wasn't
about the
doing well,
octopus?
maybe it wasn't
Tracking
following
the coast.
tracking
Yep.
the correct path, especially
Yep.
if it was a juvenile and sick
Right.
or emaciated.
Right.
Yeah, dead whale carcasses can, as they start to decompose, fill up with
Gas
gas, and then
Float for a while.
finally kind of explode.
Yep.
And
Hi
then-
guys, we got a response from a marine mammal paleobiology expert on Twitter who had some input about the ID of that whale. He suspects that the whale is most likely one of the small rorquals and not a gray whale. And
Like a
his
minke.
idea on that is, he says, the long overlap between the post-orbital and zygomatic processes give it away. No
Okay.
or very minimal contact in the gray whales, and this must have had that overlap.
Great.
So there we have it.
Excellent.
So helpful.
All right.
One of the smaller
Rorquals.
I can never say that
Rorqual.
word. It's just one of those words I have trouble with.
Rorqual.
Rorqual. I went
It's
for-
like rural juror.
What?
Sorry,
Yeah,
it's an
what?
old joke from 30 Rock.
Oh.
It was a show called the Rural Juror because it's hard to say.
Oh.
Rural juror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About a juror from a country road or something. An old.
Science, just so you know, you're now on live camera.
We've got you back there.
So just be aware.
Hello.
Hello.
Yep.
So,
Not actively typing, just
look at me,
lounging,
sciencing back here.
sciencing
No, we're just-
with comfort.
But now
Yeah, so
people
we've
can
got-
see who are
Here-
answering the questions.
Yeah, we've got
Giving
questions.
a
I've got
post-game
questions for
wrap.
you to throw back there.
Sure.
Now that you're on camera.
Sit up straight now.
Just some of the kind of like the bigger perspective here as you think about this cruise. How important do you think finding this new octopus neighborhood is to the results of your cruise?
Super important. Number one, we were suspected the first octopus garden wasn't the only place where there was venting, and perhaps octopus that were using the venting for whatever reason, if it's bare rock or anything else. Number two, we now have a replicate for water that we collected at the first octopus garden, so they can look at the water chemistry to see if both places come from the same source. We don't know where that source is. It won't tell us that, but it'll tell us if it's the same source. And then number three, not only confirm the suspicion of multiple vents or octopus gardens, but now it really opens the door, as far as I'm concerned, about there might be dozens or more of these sites around not only Davidson Seamount, but I think most exploration, because it is costly and hard to get out, seamounts that are studied, typically you're driving up the seamount and you're not looking at the base of the seamount or rocky structures close to the seamount. And the theory is this water is coming through the main seamount. That's why there's not venting going on there. It's actually acting as a source and then traveling underneath the mud, the sediments, and in the top layer of the Earth's crust, and then coming out at weak spots, these little cracks, crevices, and in fact today we found a little cone, a volcanic cone. It's coming out of these fissures. So I think if in the future people started exploring those similar features around seamounts, I think we'll find that this is actually a very common thing.
Fascinating, for sure. We definitely focus a little bit on those peaks, on those summits, like Andy said. Also the question, so what happens now with all this video footage? Questions coming in if you use citizen science programs, or how do you analyze how many octopus we've seen in the last 3 days?
That's a
And who is going to do that work? How and who?
Well, we have plenty of volunteers, I know that. So what we did at the Octopus Garden, because last year we only spent an hour there, and you could probably do an okay job of counting the octopus. The problem is that sometimes when the ROV or the camera is at the same place but different angles, without enough landmarks, and depending on the person, you may be double counting octopus. Or if you're being too conservative, you're missing some. So the best way to counter that is to kind of cover it in a regular grid like you're mowing the lawn. So, and these were spaced, of course, too. So we ensured that we weren't going over the same octopus, and so we did that during the first dive, so we can get at least a minimum population count without double counting. So we have those, I don't know how many hours, but it's quite a few hours of video that someone could sit down and kind of scrub through and count all the octopus they see, and without the fear of double counting. Today,
because the lines weren't next to it.
exactly, they're not right next to each other. And we did go over the garden and the spa, which are very dense aggregations, just kind of off transect in just one passover, so we can get a good count there. Today was just crazy, just driving around, just seeing how many we could find. So again, today we could probably have someone do a minimum count. We weren't there that long. It's less than an hour of video, and say conservatively there was X amount. So, but we'll have to. There's a lot of, after these expeditions, there's so much information, so much metadata, so much data that it takes a while to kind of organize it and fully assess how we're going to analyze it.
Chad, do you remember what your kind of off the top of your head estimate was last year after the dives of how many octopus?
Yeah, it was over 1,000. I had roughly done a count, and I had reached 1,000.
Okay.
But I kind of stopped because I didn't know I wasn't going to spend too long, but we've revisited it several times, and after this visit, I would guesstimate more than 2,000 now at the original site, and what we saw today, again, I would guesstimate, and Jennifer agrees with me, at least several hundred.
Yep.
Probably a lot more than that, but that's just conservatively. So, I mean, out of the two sites, we're talking well over, 23, 24, 2,500, and probably way more than that.
Right.
27 countries tuned in with us in Nautilus Nation right now, watching around the world. We appreciate you being here. Thanks for everybody watching on YouTube and tweeting about this and sharing screen shares and telling your friends to tune in. It's been a crazy, exciting day. And we love the chance to answer your questions.
Take numbers.
Question came in about dumping the plates at the end. How long will it take for those to dissolve?
I don't know if they were made of iron of some sort. I saw some rust on them. I imagine they have iron content. So they will break down, but it will take a long time, most likely centuries. Hercules doesn't often do that, but we did today because we had to push the dive time a little bit. So dropping the ballast weight allows us to get to the surface a little bit more quickly. However, we do have a permit from Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary to leave those plates. So yeah, they're going to be there for a while, but now they'll act as a landmark, and again, they don't often do it.
Those two plates are raw steel, and then the fiber, which is a natural rope fiber, will bought us about an extra half an hour, in truth, on the seafloor.
Yep.
And if you find those two plates and there's no octopus around them, then like something weird happened.
That was the explosion, and now they're all gone.
So those metal plates are the real MVP for giving us that last half hour.
It's something we don't often do, but again, we were really squeezed for time, and we have the swell system moving in, so we wanted to make sure we have enough buffer and we're safely on deck and proceed south.
Right, and it's also good to let the data, or not the data, let the wet lab have some time before the ship starts steaming and everything else.
Yeah, they need some time with the samples we're hauling up here.
Yeah, we have quite a lot of samples we're trying to get sorted a little bit back here, too. We have a plan.
Yeah, Jennifer, I know you're working right now. Do you want to give a quick rundown on what we have? We can do it later if you want.
No, let's see. We have... I think this one picks up sound quite well.
Oh, gotcha.
So we ended up taking 4 Niskin samples. One we took immediately when we started this dive for some background, and then we took one at the whale fall for some eDNA around the whale fall, and then we took 2 at the top of the
like spot on
octocone, I'm calling it. Top of the octocone Niskins. Let's see. Oh, earlier in the dive, it seems like a long time ago. It was over a day ago, but we were doing the water for the persistent organic pollutants.
That's right.
So we have all that water, filtered water.
Well, especially
it took
if they picked up
10
that rock.
hours of filtered water. And then for biological samples, we have a rock with that beautiful anemone, if anyone saw that in the bio box.
Oh yeah, the one up front, that looks gorgeous.
It really is beautiful. And we've had it for
having a nice time.
I know, we've had it for a long time. It's looking great. We collected a small whalebone, and over that whalebone there was some sediment with those worms, not the bone-eating worms, but
The other polychaetes?
yeah, the other polychaetes that were in the sediment. Then we slurped some of the worms from the sediment. They did have red plumes at the top. I'm not sure if which kind they are. We also slurped some of the Osidax from a section of the whale skeleton where there's some soft tissue also, and so it seemed like we got quite a bit of that. One of the squat lobster from the jaw. There was a bunch of squat lobster on the jaw. We have another bone that definitely had...
You got to collect one of the squat lobsters?
Yes, we did.
Those can be hard.
Yeah, it took a while. It was trying to live in the slurp tube.
Yeah.
But it finally
went in
came
head
free.
first, which was
nice.
Not the way to get spot lobster into the tube.
Yeah. But it was confirmed that we had that one in number 4. And then there was another bone that we were able to get that definitely had a lot of those Osidax on it, the bone-eating worms. And then right near the end there, we took that sponge from that venting crevice.
Oh, yeah.
And
then we have some push cores.
yes.
Another rock.
And the rock.
Oh, I don't have
From
that
the
on
top,
here. Just the
yep.
rock from the top. Oh, no, I do. I haven't gotten to it yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That was
But we're so
biological
excited,
samples.
but the rock.
I know. Now I'm on to our rock and sediment samples. So we do have the rock that the anemone is on.
Yes.
We have the rock that we got from the top of this cone, what I'm calling octocone. Let's see. And then we took a push core for Dane to look for those persistent organic pollutants. That was early in our dive.
Back at the base of one of those cliffs.
Right. And then we have 4 push cores from around the whale. 2 of them were taken close to the head on either side, and 2 were taken...
I saw one of those. It's going to be crazy. It like punches right down with the worms.
Yep.
It's still trapped in the top.
That's right.
That one's going to smell so good.
Well, we've been going back and forth with the researchers who want to analyze that and the best way for us to preserve it for them, given that there's the sediment and the worms. I think we have a plan now. And then for each of those push cores near, we took another push core about a little over 2 meters away where there were fewer worms. And what they really want to do in looking at those is to see the zone of influence of this whale on the sediments and the communities in the sediments.
Makes a lot of sense.
I think, and then we took the squeeze samples.
Oh, and the squeeze samples, yeah, for water chemistry.
So we took
Those are what you can see in the main feed.
4 squeezers. 2 of them were taken. Where were the first 2 taken, Jamie?
Were they whale falls?
I think they were at the whale.
Oh, that's right, at the whale fall.
2 at the whale fall, and then 2 in one of the vents we found here at the octocone. I like that name.
You like that?
Yeah.
Octocone.
It's kind of like Thunderdome. You know, it's like, welcome to the octocone.
Nice.
Welcome to Octo.
So that means there's also a song, right? Isn't there a song related to that?
Sing it for us, Chad.
Oh, no, I don't. I know Welcome to the Jungle. That's different.
But wasn't there one from
Mad Max or something?
Yeah, there has to be. Wasn't it, what's her name?
We'll find out.
It'll take me a little while.
Someone will maybe will chime in.
No,
maybe someone will write it.
You're
You're doing Tina Turner back
Yes,
there.
she was in one of those
she was
movies.
in the movie.
Oh, Tina Turner
That's
was
right,
in
and
Mad
she did a
Max.
song.
Yeah.
How did you know I was doing Tina Turner?
Because the robo camera is pointed at me.
Oh.
The whole world just watched you do Tina Turner.
Jennifer just figured this out.
Remember that time
She
I
did
said you were
That's
on
awesome.
live camera?
Although I think I could probably have picked Tina Turner from just
This
that
is why
song.
you should listen to your video
Jen.
here.
She's blushing.
Yeah, it's dark in here. You can't see.
Don't
I'm
be
I can't
shy.
see it,
No
but
one
she's
saw
blushing.
that. Don't worry. No one saw that.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
A bunch of viewers just wrote in Tina Turner.
How can you tell the camera we have trained on you?
So I think all of our good luck on this cruise was in part to what Chad's holding up to the camera there, and that is
I listened to you.
that is Inky, our mascot.
And it
Thank
actually is a
you.
good representation of the size
Is
of the
it?
octopus.
Oh, that's adorable.
It's very close. So.
And if you turn Inky over, you can see that now Inky's brooding.
There. Now Inky is in the brooding position. So
That's right.
I think we need to hold a light here. I have a flashlight. You can
Hold on,
it up.
hold on. We're gonna produce the shot
Oh.
here. Give it a second.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
There we
Turn
go.
on the quad view. If you're not watching on the quad view, take a
You
look at
see?
our
Here's Inky brooding,
Yeah.
completely accurate
and no heterocotyledus, so it's a female.
Yeah, so it's a female. It's a breeding female.
lady Inky.
That's
So
right.
let's see those
Awesome.
eggs.
Thank you, Inky. Inky is available for any interactions in
You're
which
welcome.
you want
Oh,
to
that's
have.
super fun.
Yeah.
That's right.
Any questions you have for Inky?
Yeah. Introduce yourself. When did you first decide you wanted to become an explorer? What's your second favorite root vegetable? All the things. Awesome. So a few questions here. How far can we go down at our deepest with this ROV configuration? 4,000 meters, which is the average depth of the world ocean. So we can get to 50% of the world's ocean with the tools that we have right here. We also developed a brand new
Hold on.
ROV system, two-body system, Little Hercules in Atalanta, which can go to 6,000 meters. Okay, science team, back to you.
Yeah.
Question came in your opinion, what are some of the greatest threats to these ecosystems, or I guess you could take that even broader, what are some of the threats to Monterey National Marine Sanctuary? What are you looking out for?
Ooh. What's really difficult is, and I know Jennifer's worked a lot on this, but we have some documentation to try and look at the health of our entire sanctuary, and it's broken down into different habitats because Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary covers so many different habitats from what we were looking at today in the last 3 days, the deep sea and seamounts, from kelp forest to the intertidal to sandy beaches, even to estuaries. So it's a very complex question to answer, but I think we can try and parse it down a little bit. But I would say one major threat, of course, is from humans. It's water pollution and things that are coming in from those sources. Certainly climate change overall, but that's affecting a lot of people because that affects things like ocean acidification and exacerbates other problems. There's a big list, but I'm not sure if I could rank 1 through 5 or anything. I don't know if Jennifer has any thoughts on that.
I think that changing climate is definitely one that I've been thinking a lot about because it's going to have so many different components to it. And we've been seeing some changes in the sanctuary and surrounding areas that likely are related to climate change, such as some of these warm water heat waves that we've been seeing that have been having an impact, and some like sea star wasting, or what are they? Yeah, sea star wasting syndrome likely has a temperature component to it, but it's not always just that
Right, it could be a
change,
confluence
so
of all sorts of factors.
so it's going to have many factors, and so that makes it a little hard to track and understand. It's also a very large, global issue. So there's only so much that, say, the management of the sanctuary can do to kind of mediate or try and protect
But this
the
is
sanctuary.
part of the reason we come out, not only to understand the resources out here and realizing now that the sanctuary is protecting animals we didn't even know existed out here in terms of like an octopus nursery,
Yeah, right.
but human threats such as trash and pollutants that we put into the sanctuary. That's why we had some money to bring Daniel on, and he's actually measuring both the water column at 10,000 feet and the sediments down here for pollutants that don't decompose very well. And they persist in the environment. So this has been a multidisciplinary cruise. It's been fantastic. And yeah, again, it's hard to isolate what threats are the worst because some of them are global in nature, some of them are local, but that's kind of what the sanctuary is charged in doing, is understanding those threats and seeing what we can do through best practices, education, and other avenues.
Right, and supporting research to better understand it.
Yep.
So, I mean, I started out with that one because it's definitely something that's on my mind, but the sanctuary itself can do more, I think, with some of those smaller localized impacts that humans may be having that we can help to understand better and then maybe change behavior to affect. So education outreach can make a difference in people, the choices that they make in their everyday lives. Choose different products that don't introduce contaminants into the water, or choose a less single-use lifestyle or choices, so that we're generating less trash, than the less chance that it'll enter into our waterways and end up in the ocean. So I think there's a lot that we can do through personal choices that can have an influence.
And there's a lot of best practice guidelines that the sanctuary helps develop for not only restaurants and how they conduct their business, from washing grease down and, you know, hosing off of their patios, to farmers and what they use. So they are trying to contain a lot of the maybe pesticides and fertilizers they use in their fields from washing into the watershed and directly into the sanctuary. So yeah, there's a lot of things the sanctuary tries to do, but it really does come down to human behavior for the human component of those threats.
Super good discussion. Thank you. We have 20-some countries watching right now. I want to give a shout out to our explorers in New Caledonia who just wrote in.
Wow.
I feel like that is a new one that I haven't heard in a bit. So awesome to have you with us, and welcome to Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, the much colder corner of the ocean. Rennie, a question for you.
Sure.
Viewers want to know, are rising water temperatures affecting sonars and other sensors? Could you talk to us a little bit about temperature's impact on those tools?
Rising water temperatures on sonar?
Yeah, on sonar or seafloor mapping.
So, we mentioned this the other night, but I'll kind of start from the beginning. So an acoustic sensor, either a single beam sonar that's trying to map the seafloor, or a multi-beam sonar, its time of flight from the when the acoustic pulse is emitted to when it travels through the water column to the seafloor and bounces off, and then is heard again once it reaches the ship at the bottom of the hull. So that time of flight is based on the speed of sound through a medium, in this case seawater. So if there are rising temperatures, then the sound speed profile, so how we measure the speed of sound at different depths, would be affected. However, we need to measure that anyway in order to have an accurate depiction of the sound velocity profile. So we're constantly measuring that when we're mapping via a few different tools. So as far as that changing the way we map, I think it could change the models that we use to extend those profiles at deeper depths, although those temperatures are not likely to reach deep ocean depths significantly for this purpose. But it will affect it in that that sound speed will change.
Good explanation. Thank you. What generally is the sound speed through seawater?
Generally, the sound speed through seawater is somewhere like between 1485 and 1500. Usually we use 1500 as an average, or 1485, depending on a few factors, but it's the surface that's the most variable. So the surface has a more frequently changing and a more variable temperature difference, affected diurnally, so whether it's daytime or nighttime. And it has more variable salinity as well. The things that affect the speed of sound through water are temperature, salinity, and depth. So you figure the depth is at any given level. That's kind of the constant. You don't have to worry about that as far as the top layer changing, because it's just whatever number it is. But it's the salinity and temperature that'll wildly vary.
Makes a lot of sense, especially as we're really in these tropical waters or closer to shore where there's freshwater inputs. I mean, Channel Islands where you're offshore but you're near shore as far as runoff and inputs.
Yeah, that all definitely matters.
Cool, thanks, Rennie.
Yep.
Chad and Jen, question for you. How many researchers and different projects are going to benefit from these samples and the video on this dive? Can you talk a little bit more about where the samples that you all are taking off the ship are headed to?
Sure, absolutely. So there's Dane Harden, of course, who's aboard. He'll be taking the sediments and the water samples, and he'll be analyzing them for persistent organic pollutants. Then we have the squeeze samplers that will be taken off the ship by Annie Hartwell. And she's going to take them back to both Jason Sylvan and to George Wheat at University of Alaska Fairbanks. And they're going to be analyzing that water for water chemistry out of the vents and also possible bacterial presence. We have rock samples. I'm not sure exactly where that's going to go yet, but what Ocean Exploration Trust does is every specimen that we collect that we do not take off the boat ourselves, they put into a collection. And so any scientist can actually check out those specimens at a later date. So I think that's really, really cool. So even if we're not sending these specimens to anyone, anyone can check them out at a later date. We also collected the bone-eating worms today. And so we have some sediment cores and some bones with worms and some loose worms. And that's actually going to be farmed out to 3 or 4 scientists. And they're going to look at the DNA of the worms, try to identify the worms, look at the sediment stratigraphy, look at bacterial presence in the sediments as well. So, and then of course Amanda Kahn, who is on the cruise. These are people that basically don't work for the sanctuary. Even though she's local, she works for Moss Landing Marine Lab. She'll be taking off the sponge specimens as well. That's just off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of anyone else specifically so far.
Well, I think those researchers that are going to be taking the sediment samples that we took near the whale are also interested in the Niskin eDNA from around the whale.
Correct. That's the other one. So some of those same scientists taking the bone worms, they're going to be taking the eDNA from the Niskins and looking at it for DNA that's been floating through the water column. They use primers that target specific groups of animals, and if it hits, it'll replicate them, and they'll know what it is. Because we couldn't do all this ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't have the time nor the expertise. This is what's so amazing about it. We work with so many people, and actually, the whale fall was so, ridiculous today. I'm emailing and literally calling people I've never met in my life.
Yeah.
Because please turn on this website. We need your help.
Yeah, they're colleagues of colleagues of colleagues, and the network just comes together, and it just happens. And now we have a person driving up to meet us at the San Pedro port on Friday morning to take off those samples. So it's pretty incredible how this all works. But I know if I specialized in something and I had a chance to get samples, I'd be like, yes, I'm driving up there. I'm going to come and get them.
Especially in something not only that's, deep sea, which already has its own challenges and infrequency, but something that's ephemerally found deep sea. Like you just happen upon this whale fall.
Yeah.
You can't really go looking for whale falls.
Well,
right, I think that's why word spread quickly. Like someone in the science chat was like, you should contact this person and this person, which I couldn't do from the watch lead chair. So behind the scenes, what you guys weren't seeing is periodically one of us was getting up and going out and finding Chad and talking to him, and he was madly texting and emailing and even having to call folks to coordinate what kind of samples.
Well, we were on a live show, and Greg came and knocked on the door, and he was like, I have a person on hold who needs to talk to Chad about this sample right now. So as we cut away to the screen sharing, like Chad took off the headset and I put on the headset and jumped in the seat, and I was like, now I'm Chad.
Yeah.
Hi. Like, I'm here to talk to you.
Very, very busy day.
Yeah. It was a flurry. Yeah. So the people who are watching maybe during that whole thing would notice that all of a sudden we're like, and now we're also going to collect this.
Yeah.
And that was because new word was coming in of people who wanted, and some of the samples we took that aren't samples was the video. That, and to make that 3D photo mosaic, that was something that was evolving over time while we were there as well.
That's a great point with the measurement with the lasers, getting more of an orbit for 3D reconstruction. All sorts of stuff, because we're not the experts in whale falls, and it wasn't even one person suggesting things. It was a group of people, a network of people.
Yeah.
When you're at this site for a limited amount of time, you're trying to get the most out of your dollar here, the most out of your time, and I think was pretty good today.
We did. We
Pretty
did
happy
get,
with it.
after we had left, we did get like one request, and we're like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, there
we
was
had
one
to
request
leave.
shortly after we left, and it was
Yeah.
like, can't turn back now.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But we do know where it is, and that there's a, I think
Well-
you heard there's a good chance that people are coming back within a matter of months, and so we can pass that request along.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
So, but one of the things we're trying to do right now is get organized to make sure we know where every sample is going and how exactly they're requesting it be preserved, so that when they're on board, we know exactly what we're doing to handle them and process them quickly.
It really parallels this question of who are these samples going to and what researchers will they help. But another question that comes in is, how do you pick a science team? I think within the Nautilus team, we have a lot of different pathways to get our science support team and our education outreach team through our fellowships and internship programs and regular contractors that come back out with us. But then as you're planning a cruise, the sanctuary team, you are given X number of berths on the ship, 6, 5, 7, varies. Do you sort of take the same approach of like inch deep, mile wide, or how do you pick the team that you want to bring out to represent the whole science community, in the event that you run into a whale fall or just with the incredible biodiversity of life that we've seen down there in the last couple days?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think after last year's cruise, it was important to bring back some of the same people who are familiar with the site. There's something about being there, because now I've seen, for example, the Octopus Garden. This is my 4th physical visit to it, and I've actually been able to say, oh, I know it's around that corner. It's just downslope here. I mean, you once you've been to a place, just like in your neighborhood, a few times, you have a little bit of a memory of the landmarks, and I needed other people who had seen it too, like Jennifer with the vent, and she found it.
Yeah, we
while I was
well,
asleep,
actually,
which was
Jess is the one who went.
oh, okay.
Jess saw. She said, "Well, there's some octopus over there that are kind of going up a wall." I'm like, "Go there!" And then because I was worried that I'd only seen it once for a short amount of time, was I going to be able to recognize it again? And as soon as we got over there, I was like, "Okay, that's it." But yeah, I was the only one who was working in the control van at the time who'd ever seen it before. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's familiarity. It's obviously people that we've all worked with, and we know that we work well together and communicate well together and are good, not on camera, I'm not going to say that, but good on being able to talk during this, science interaction with the public. Dane, of course, with his expertise with water chemistry and what he was bringing aboard here. Amanda for her amazing enthusiasm and incredible knowledge of invertebrates, especially sponges. She's
and
the
now
new,
I guess vertebrates.
and now she's going to
just
dress
trying
as a vertebrate.
She's just trying to take over
Erica Burton,
the world.
my colleague of 17 years at the sanctuary, who is an expert in fishes, and we've gone out to study the deep sea together for so many years. I mean, it's a really, really, really good group, and because of the telepresence and the network of people, we bring in other scientists who are part of the Scientist Ashore program, and we have a presentation to them. They're invited to join. They're approved, and so they log into this chat room that's separate from the public chat room, and they are very, very helpful in identifying animals, directing us, and giving us ideas on what samples to take and what to do. So
and who to contact.
And who to contact.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
I am not an expert at any of this stuff. I am a generalist in marine science, and but I've organized a few cruises, and there's so many details and logistics to handle. And so my boss trusts me with that, and so I feel more like a Caltrans supervisor. But it's certainly bringing everyone together to make the science successful, and I think we did it this time for sure.
Yeah, and we weren't sure we were going to get through that entire second. When you set up that second route, it was like, this is optimistic that we'll be able to cover all this. And today we were like, we're going to get to that cone.
We're going to get to that cone. We had a feeling. We had a feeling.
And when the whale fall happened, I'm like, oh boy, I don't know if we're getting to that cone.
We did
it.
You talk about serendipity again. The Octopus Garden was just dumb luck. The whale fall was dumb luck. We did have an idea about this cone.
Yeah, I wouldn't
so
call
that
it
was
dumb
an
luck
educated
anymore.
guess.
Yeah.
However, we could have chosen to have started today's dive, yesterday's dive. It's been 30 hours on the cone. And I mean, it's butterfly effect, right? We don't know. We might have discovered something else on this cone, but we probably wouldn't have run into the whale fall, almost assuredly.
Yeah.
So things sometimes it just works out. It's lucky.
And I have to say
Just pure luck.
the formations we saw earlier in the dive, those I called one earlier the Cliffs of Insanity.
Oh yeah, the mud clay cliffs.
As they
were
came
amazing.
into view, they reminded me of the Cliffs of Insanity from The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm.
They were really beautiful and interesting, and you saw kind of zonation